YouTube world can hear what we're saying. Yo. No, I will just record seventh hour because the other hours I'm kind of practicing, so to speak. It's always better the third time instead of the second time or first time. And then calculus, I'll do the same for them. They just have two classes. So I'm kind of excited because I've always just had one calc class, but now there's two. So um, the only bad thing is it takes a while to get through the videos. It's a lot. If I had just taught each of you individually one-on-one, the lesson would probably take half the length. So sometimes you'll watch it, you'll be like, I wish it would pick up the pace. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go through and teach it with nobody watching because then I would be teaching this lesson 4 times one day. I just don't want to do that. So we'll hide that and we'll get started. All we're going to do is these 4 examples today, and we're going to do absolute value inequalities. And this is something that's reviewed from last year. You maybe remember that an absolute value less than a constant, you think of it as a less than. So is this a conjunction or a disjunction? Conjunction. So your graph will have adjoining symbols. You'll see an overlap. It must satisfy both the inequalities that come up. Absolute value of x greater than c, we say great or than. So in this situation, it is a disjunction. The arrows will go apart from one another, and only one of the inequalities must be true in order to satisfy the inequality. Let's think about the special cases. Anytime you see a negative or a 0 pop up on the other side, a light bulb needs to go off in your brain and say, I should think about this before I try solving it. For example, an absolute value always ends up being what? Positive. Is a positive greater than a negative? Is it ever not greater than a negative? Can you think of any positive number that won't be greater than some negative number? No. So you don't even need to solve this. You can simply say all real numbers this is true for. Works for every single number. You don't even need to solve it. Is it possible to come up with a positive number that's less than a negative? No. So if you get an absolute value less than a negative, that would be a no solution. Could never happen. What kind of numbers are less than 0? Negative. Is it possible for an absolute value to be less than 0? No. You just told me an absolute value may not be less than 0. Could an absolute value be equal to 0? Yes. So you may disregard the less than sign and simply focus on absolute value equal to 0. One solution. Absolute value of x greater than 0. Can an absolute value be greater than 0? Yeah, most of the time they are. Do they always have to be greater than 0? Unless they are equal to 0. So in this situation, I'll give you an example. Say x plus 3, absolute value greater than 0. Is that a conjunction or a disjunction? Great or, so it's a disjunction. So you'd set up x plus 3 is greater than 0, and x plus 3 is less than negative 0, or just 0. You see in both situations, you get x is greater than negative 3, and x is less than negative 3. Huh. If you graph that, look at what you get. Negative 3, greater than, and less than. What's the only number that doesn't work? Negative 3 is the only number that doesn't work. So you can see in this situation, it's all real numbers except it just excludes one value. Okay? In this situation, x greater than 0 or equal to 0, again, all real numbers. An absolute value has to be greater than or equal to 0. When you solve that, you would come up with the same graph. You would just fill in the 3 and realize that covers all numbers. So let's just try a couple very basic examples, okay? You're going to have a short assignment today. It's going to be no big deal for you. A nice kind of relaxing day for us. We're going to solve these and represent the solution set in interval notation. What must I do to A to start solving it? Add the 9. You isolate the absolute value by adding 9. You get 30. So 2x minus 3 is greater than 30. In order to remove absolute value signs, I need to set up two equations or inequalities. What is the second inequality? Yes, flip both signs, the inequality sign as well as the value of the other